a traumatic sexual assault at the age of 9 by a friend of her father. This experience nearly cost Maria her life and has impacted every facet of her being. More than 3 years ago, Maria began sharing her transformative story of the convergence of her own personal and professional growth in facing this trauma from her childhood. We are so humbled and grateful to have Maria here with us tonight sharing her story. Please join me in welcoming María Trusa.
I'm receiving all your energy, and I'm honored to be here and be a voice for the voiceless. And we say voiceless because the children really don't have a voice yet. They will have a voice later on, but we're dimming that voice as they face child sexual abuse. And entrepreneurship, which we'll get to that part, is so tightly connected to our traumas. And you could utilize your trauma to empower your business, and I'll show you why, how you could do it later, or it could actually get into you failing at your business. And it is important to understand why. It all began for me in the Dominican Republic. I was a little girl, happy little girl, very poor, didn't even have enough shoes. Many times I was running around in the fields, just without my shoes, but so happy. Then at the age of 8, unfortunately, my father, who became an alcoholic, he was a good man, and turned into alcoholism, and started destroying basically the family. So my mom has 5 children, and she had to make a decision, what do I do? Because I can't support these children, and we are being moved, we are being kicked out of 17 homes by the age of 8 in the Dominican Republic, because my father would not pay the rent. So my mom decided to come to the United States. She started moving her first mountain, and that mountain created a lot of damage for us. Damage that it took me many, many years to really understand her decision, because I actually was extremely angry at my mom, resented her so much. And even when I had kids, I couldn't understand how she made that decision. And then later on, I watched my mom with different lenses. Then I realized that the trauma was still being portrayed in me as I watched my mom as this horrible woman that was heartless because she split the family. So my mom left, and a year later, they're able to make enough money, and they got us a house. And my father was told the only thing you have to do for them is actually feed them. That's it. He couldn't even do that. And there were Christmas that I ate bread and grapes, but I had my brothers with me. I had my little brother that was 4, and my other brother that was 11, and I was 9 by then. My father, in the middle of the night, one night he comes in, and he decides that he's going to take my little brother, that's 4 years old. And he came in with his friend who was a witchcraft man, El Brujo. That's what they called him in the town where I come from. It's a very small town called Licea Medio. They were taking my little brother, and I woke up and I took my little brother from my father's arms, and my father said that I needed to go. And you know what's interesting? I've told this story probably more than 500 times since I started this journey. I was silent for 47 years. And now, in 3 years, I've told this story more than 500 times. But what trauma does to you is that the body keeps the score. I am feeling my trauma. I'm talking to you, but my body realizes that I am talking about the little girl that was 9 years old, and it takes me there, and my heart rate is going higher. I get a little shaky. I start feeling heat. You might notice I might be a little red. And I'm saying that because this trauma is trauma that all of you have. I believe that there's no human being that has not gone through some trauma. The level of trauma, that's what makes the difference. This level of trauma for me, I am 59 years old and I still carry it. But I'm aware of it. That's the difference, you see? I am aware when my trauma is showing up. So my father takes me with him and his friend, and he leaves me with his friend in his house where he did witchcraft. He takes me to this room and he forced me to drink a bottle of whiskey. Non-stop. I had to chug a bottle of whiskey. I could have died just from the whiskey. And he said to me, what's going to happen tonight, you cannot tell anyone because you will die and your family will die. He takes me to a motel and he brutally raped me. Destroyed my body. I woke up in the morning and I could hardly walk. I was bleeding. I was still intoxicated. And I talk about how the alcohol actually became a gift for me. Because if I had to sustain the pain that my body was going through without the alcohol, I don't know if I'll be here today talking to you. Because I had to have surgery on my right side. My fallopian tubes, my ovary got twisted in my fallopian tubes. That's how much that man destroyed my body. He destroyed my soul. I wanted to die at the age of 9. If I knew how to kill myself, I would have done it. I just didn't know how. But I know that I did not want to exist. Fast forward, and I just want to check on everyone. Everybody's okay. Because I know that I could trigger other people's trauma. And I tell this story with the details that I say it because I don't want to be a statistic. We have gotten used to statistics, and that needs to stop. So when you read my book, which is in English, by the way, as well, I give the detail. You go into that room with me because I want you to feel the pain so that we can make a change. We've normalized sexual abuse. We know it exists. It's an ugly, silent pandemic. What happened to me, I had to leave the town because the town was so small, everybody knew what happened to me. When I walked into the room for the first time after recovering into my classroom, everybody looked at me with pity. And guess what? From that moment on, I asked my mom to move me to a different town, and they did. And I left my little town, and I never touched my trauma again. I make believe that it didn't exist. It didn't exist. I'm in another town, nobody knows me, so I don't have to talk about it. And in my family, 47 years, my nephews and nieces never heard the story. My kids I waited until they were in college because I always felt, I said, they need to know from me because I felt that I was not authentic to my children. And I said, this story, this is something that they could hear from someone else because this was a big deal in the town. Everybody knew it. So I told my children, and actually I became their hero. If they had admiration for me, the admiration, instead of, because we feel ashamed of the trauma that happens to us when we're sexually abused, somehow we take the shame, because I took it myself. Like, what did I do? Obviously, I didn't do anything. I had no control over that period of my life. I was in the hands of my father, these men, adults that were making the decisions for me. I come to the United States at the age of 15. I could not speak English, a word of English. And that was a big challenge for me. But I have to tell you one thing, when the doors of JFK opened up, and they opened up without me having to open them, I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. I could do big things here. I was 15 years old and I could do big things here. And what happened to me? Wow, nobody's gonna know. I could be a different human being. And I was excited. And then I get married at the age of 17. And I get married to an abusive man that mentally, physically tried to abuse me, but I have 4 brothers and they call him and they stop him. He knew what would happen to him if he touched me again. Touched me once and that was it. But that man abused me mentally and raped me whenever he wanted. And you know why I call it rape? Because I did not matter. It wasn't when I wanted, because, and by the way, most of the time, I didn't want it. Because I didn't know what it is to feel. I lost my womanhood. I had no idea what it was to feel. So my husband did whatever he wanted, whenever he wanted it. And to me, that was rape. I was abused again and again. I have a child at the age of 20. My firstborn, my Franco, who's, by the way, 39 years old at this time, and my best friend, and actually, we coached together. I just finished doing I have a home in Vermont, 12 acres, and what we use this home for, aside from being with my family, it is my heaven, it is my escapo, we actually call it, it's to escape. We just did a retreat. My son is a coach with me on my brand, which is Forgive to Live. We just did a retreat. But I'll tell you what I did to this boy when he was just born. Because trauma makes you do ugly things that we are all capable of doing. All of us. And that's why, because I understand that concept that we are born good. We are all born good. When someone does something like my father did, I never had a chance to ask him, but I'm actually now interested in knowing what was his life like, that he would sedate with alcohol. He was sedating because you don't just become an alcoholic. You're in so much pain that you now sedate with alcohol, and the sedation now is something that you need, and it increases and you lose your life, because that's what he did. So when my son was born, I wanted the pregnancy, and I was happy. I didn't know. I thought I was going to have a girl. Guarantee a girl. I have a boy. This boy is born, and I don't want my kid. I was completely disconnected from this kid. Why? My trauma just showed up in front of me. Men hurt me. I had to clean his little penis. Do you know how hard that was for me? I had no clue that would happen. So one night, I took my son. I was desperate. This kid cried every single night. I took him, shook him, and threw him in the bed, and he fell on the floor. That story still hurts. And I say it because I want you to know that we are all born good. We are made bad. We're made bad by the programming. We're made bad by the society that we're born into. We're made bad by all the transgenerational trauma that our parents take and they pass it on to us, and then we pass it on to our kids, and it needs to stop. And I can tell you today that in my family, it stopped. It stopped. I am fully connected to my 3 kids. Franco is my best friend. I healed. He became my accelerator. Because we all have the opportunity of accelerating our healing process. We just have to make a decision. And sometimes you hit bottom, and that's when the acceleration comes. The great thing would be to make a choice now and say, I'm gonna start healing tonight. I heard Maria speak. I wanna start the healing process. I don't wanna wait to hit bottom. I wanna start now. Because the healing journey is a choice. It's our choice. I didn't have a choice when I was a kid. But guess what? Everything that happens now is my choice. It is my decision. I am creating the results that are happening in my life, and I take full responsibility. And when you do that, the freedom that comes from that is incredible, because then I am the creator of my life. So I create crazy results. People tell me, how can you? I have a business. I take care of my community. I left my job after I was there for 27 years. 27 years as an executive director, making over $300,000. And one day I said, I'm leaving. I'm gonna build myself a medical center that is gonna take care of the Latino community. I wanna focus on the immigrant community because they don't have access to healthcare. Especially where I live in Westchester County, and there's not a lot of access to dignified care for this community. So I decided I'm leaving. Everybody thought I was insane. My mom said, you're crazy. You're crazy. How would you leave this job? You have great benefits, everything. I didn't care. But as an entrepreneur, I'm gonna tell you that all that I just told you, all that I just shared with you, that healing, if you are thinking of becoming an entrepreneur, you have to make the choice to start healing now. I see a lot of young faces. So the healing needs to start now. Because I have been doing so much healing work constantly, I became obsessed with healing. Because I knew that if I heal, I'm not just healing myself, I'm healing my family. I'm healing my children. My kids are successful entrepreneurs themselves. Went to the University of Michigan, Tufts University. I have a child that is on her way, musician, because I've taught my kids anything they want to do, they can create, and they've seen the results. To start healing, you need to become your number one. The only person that matters when you wake up is you. We're taught that that is not the case. It is your husband, or it is your family, it is your children. No. It is you. I can tell you that last year, I went through the second tougher year of my life. I have a 15-year-old daughter that went through a mental health crisis. Never dealt with that with my children. This was a new ball game. And I openly talk about it. Actually, it's my first time that I'm speaking openly because she gave me permission. Because the healing that this girl has gone through in a year, it's like magic. We removed some of the issues that were creating her mental health issues, and I started working with her. And my daughter is a beautiful soul that is going to do great things. And her and I started doing our first podcast because we said we want to teach parents how to communicate with their children when they're suffering from mental health. And she is speaking to the parents, and she's speaking to the teenagers. So the healing that we have seen us, because again, I said to you before, I'm obsessed with healing. When she went through that last year, I did an Ironman, guys. Do you know what an Ironman is? Never swam in my life. Never. I started swimming last year in February. Then my daughter was actually in a hospital. And while she was there, and when she got out, I was training for my Ironman. Every morning I got up and I trained 2 hours. And then on the weekends, 4 hours. But guess what? When I was done training, this was a rock. This was the woman that showed up to support her daughter the way that she needed my support. It's all about healing. It's all about making a choice. I could have made that choice of going down and being depressed because what I went through, you have no clue. I don't have enough time to tell you today. There will be a continuation. I'm actually on my second book. My second book is Parenting Through Trauma. And the story of my daughter will be there. And you know why? Because my kids have learned, like me, that you don't judge yourself, because dark and light is part of all of our lives. We all have darkness. So let's face that. So with the healing, then you start healing your darkness and you start healing your family. I want to transition into my business. You see, the judgment, and when you judge yourself less and less, then you're opening up your mind and your soul to focus. I am one of the most focused human beings. I have the Yo Digo No Mas movement. I have my medical center. I'm writing a second book. I have a family. It's endless energy. It is divine energy because I found the way to accept my story, accept myself, and love myself. Because I am in love with me. And I say that with pride. I say it with pride because it took me years